here. All right. So I'm talking to TJ Nelson today.
Right.
TJ is, I did a little research. I've seen your stuff and I like the value that you bring to everybody. And you're bringing value not just for sales reasons, but just to kind of help people out and learn from others as well. So first of all, thank you. Can you start off, give us a little introduction and background about you and how you came to where you are in the solar industry now?
Yeah. TJ, otherwise known as Taylor. Some people know me as Taylor Nelson, so they can confuse people. Let me silence this. But as far as just a short intro, basically started knocking doors about 6 years ago in Vegas for Solar City. Pretty wild. And 3 months after that, Vegas shut down. So we all went to Texas, right? And in Texas, that's when I really fully committed to the game, was purely obsessed. And then at one point in 2016 in the country, I was the number one person, right? But people can argue, but basically they had what was called a power ranking. So they gave you points for gross bookings, final contracts, and installs. And so I had the highest score on that because I had a 90% pull through. So sometimes people would, give me crap like, hey, I signed more deals than you. But I was like, I got more installs. So it was pretty wild. And, just doing door to door, direct sales, I got really good at referrals. By generating my own stuff, I sold, 15, then 20, then 25. So like a 3-month run of average of 20 purely self-generated deals with 90% pull through. So that's kind of where, a lot of people knew who I was from that. And then shortly after that, right when I'm on top of the world, I lost everything, got really sick with Lyme disease and all these co-infections. And that's a whole story in and of itself. Couldn't work for a year and a half. Didn't know if I was going to die for 8 months. Just like pure nightmare suffering. So that's been going on for 4 years. But, after that, I moved all over the place. And then I ended up in Arizona. I was running leads for a company. Wasn't really liking how it was going. And then I started Direct Solar in Arizona. After I started Direct Solar, brought on a bunch of people. Vegas team was doing good, but I had to keep coming to Vegas to help the team. I had to let go of the person that was running Vegas, and I just moved to Vegas. So now I'm in Vegas, right? So right now we have, it's like, I think it's 29 people right now, 28, 29. And I'm about to, start really building it up just because there's been some stuff where there's been some bottlenecks. So everything's really sound now. We got solid people. It's got a good foundation. So now we're going to start really scaling up from here.
Awesome, man. Well, that's cool that you're able to, that you've overcome and you've kind of basically, obviously it was a big obstacle and it changed your life. And then but you've been able to kind of overcome that and build back. It sounds like build back what you already had, it probably even better. So I have a science background where I know physiology, I know anatomy, I know all this stuff about the human body. And I think I don't know what Lyme disease is. And so and I know that if I don't know it, there's definitely a lot of people listening that won't know it. Can you tell us a little bit about what is Lyme disease? Because I know I've heard of it, but it's one of those things I heard of it. I never really gave it a thought as to what it actually means.
So Lyme, it has 3 different forms. The main form people know of it is the spirochete form. It's a very complicated DNA structure. Some people claim it's been genetically modified by the government, Plum Island, but we don't need to get into that. And so it comes in.
Yeah, we remember we're limited on time. If we want, we'll have to book another 3 hours, and we can start going down conspiracy rabbit holes. But sorry, go ahead.
But so it's very complicated. It morphs into different forms. It evades the immune system. It releases little proteins so that the immune system doesn't attack it. It puts biofilms around it so that your immune system can't get to it. And it suppresses the immune system. So it suppresses it almost kind of like, HIV or AIDS, but Lyme itself doesn't typically kill people. It just makes life very shitty. But with Lyme, it also comes with a lot of different co-infections. So when I got tested, they showed I had Lyme, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Bartonella, Mycoplasma, Babesia, elevated levels of Epstein-Barr virus. And Bartonella gave me a much harder time than the Lyme actually did. But the Lyme is what suppresses your immune system. So all those other infections can take hold. And Lyme can affect some people differently. Sometimes it just people's joints hurt. Other times it's all neurological. So their whole nervous system's freaking out. For me, it was all just very bad brain fog. I still can't exercise. So I haven't been able to exercise for 4 years. Very bad brain fog, extremely bad fatigue, a lot of pain. I can't eat almost anything. So I just have a private cook all my meals. And so I really have to manage my stress. So I'm not 100% yet, but I'm a lot better than what I used to be. But I'm still waiting for, I'm waiting 80%, 90%. The best way I can describe it, it's like if you got a Lamborghini and you can only drive at 25 miles an hour. It's like, hey, I know what I used to be able to drive, but I'm limited at 25. So it's like, shit, but whatever. I'll learn my lessons and all that and keep moving forwards. But yeah, very, very rough, man. Like too dark to really get into it, but you don't want Lyme disease. That's what I can say about that.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I am a big baby when it comes to like, I get the cold or a flu and I'm in bed and my wife always says, what do you do? Just get up and go. And I'm a wimp when it comes to sick and ailments. I mean, I don't know if it's a wimp. It's more of, when I need rest, I rest. When I don't need rest, I work. So it's
very healthy.
If I get to that point, I'd rather just lay in bed and do nothing and try to get better. But with something like that, it's obviously not as simple as that. You can't just lie in bed for years and years and years. So is it something that you're always going to live with? Is it something that there is like a cure? Like, what is the, I guess, outlook for someone with Lyme disease?
Mentally, I've had to accept that I probably will have to deal with it forever, but logically I'm trying to overcome it. But yeah, it's like, you're saying you have, the flu. It's basically like having the flu for 4 years. Like actually I got COVID. And when my symptoms of COVID were first coming up, I thought it was just a Lyme thing. I thought I was like, oh shit, Lyme's coming back. And then I started coughing. I was like, I got tested. But as far as right now, so last year I spent over 75 grand in medical, trying all this different stuff. Right now I'm working with 2 people from the UK and we're really going at it on the autoimmune level. And so this is probably the best I've felt in 4 years. I just have to be really careful. Like, you say you rest when you need to rest. I don't. So that's my problem. People have been trying to get me to take a day off for a long time. And then it's just the way I'm wired. I just want to work. And so that's kind of, I need to, get better at, I try to do like yoga or a massage or something like that once a week. But if I can get the immune system strong, keep the stress low and reduce the autoimmune responses, pretty sure within the next 3 to 6 months, I should be more like 80%. And then hopefully I can exercise again. But yeah, some people have had it for like 20 years and stuff like that. But
obviously you don't want to rush it. I mean, that's probably one of the toughest things for most people, especially people that are working and they miss exercise and they feel great. And then they push too hard and it sets them back. Like I remember my background's in fitness and with physical therapy. That's one of the things that you see with people that they have spinal injuries or they are recovering from surgery and they start feeling better. But that what they do is they just kind of push themselves too fast. And then the second time it happens, the recovery is going to be twice as long. And it's the human body is kind of resilient in that same way. But obviously, dude, that's pretty darn inspirational. I always love hearing stories from people like that because compared to the things I complain about, I mean, that's huge. The things I complain about are nothing. Yeah. My dog barking right now is a little annoying, but regardless, I mean, thank you. Obviously it's inspirational. You seem to be crushing it. And I'm excited to see you getting back to hopefully 100%. And when you get to there, I'm sure you've built up the strength that now once you are feeling better, everything's going to be so much easier for you.
Yeah. There's even when I was really sick building the business, I don't know if you know what Toradol is. It's like an extremely strong painkiller like aspirin. Mm-hmm. So like athletes, if they get injured, they'll take it to keep playing. But like I would wake up in the morning, I got to run the sales meeting. And I felt so shitty, I couldn't get out of bed. And I would literally just inject Toradol into my leg, get up and go run the meeting, So for a while, it's kind of like when people were late to the sales meeting, I was like, you can make it. If I can make it to the meeting, you can make it to the meeting. But
How many doctors and people did you see before they were able to figure out what it was? Because I feel like that's been I had some chronic lower back issues when I was in high school. And I remember that was the thing that drove me crazy was you would go to these places and they basically would just like do a test and it was negative. And I'm like, oh, you're fine. Go back to it.
Yeah.
And how long did that take? Was that something that they were able to kind of diagnose quick, or was it just like a frustratingly long process?
For me, I actually found out pretty quick. I mean, some could argue I don't know how long I actually had it and then it just got triggered. But from the time I felt really crappy to figuring out, it was probably only 8 months. But I was already pretty like into health before that. So I got lucky that way. A lot of people don't know for 10 years. And by then the Lyme is just so engraved into every crevice of their body. It's a lot harder for them, right? So even as bad as my situation was, it's not nearly as bad as some people. But I actually had a doctor, he tested me for Lyme. It came back negative because I used a crappy test in Texas. So it was only 8 months, maybe 3 doctors. But I was already pretty into the health game. So it wasn't like I didn't know anything about health to begin with, you know? It's just I started getting these red marks on my skin. Like it looked like I woke up and an alien just like scratched me while I was sleeping. I'm like, what the hell is this? You know, I'm like, this is really weird. So, you know, it's kind of an obvious thing. I went to a doctor in San Diego and I showed him and he's like, whoa. He's like, asked me all these questions. He's like, I got to run all these panels. And then they all came back, you know, you got all these diseases. I was like, oh shoot. But yeah, so it was only about 8 months.
Yeah. I mean, that's still, I'm sure it was frustrating, but obviously finding out what it is when you know your enemy, it's a little bit easier to hopefully face it and overcome.
Yep.
So putting a name to the face, so to speak, and moving forward makes it easy. So I don't want to talk too much. I will say, actually, I was going to say I wanted to move on to solar because obviously this isn't we're not necessarily in the health industry, but I think it's fascinating. That was one of my concerns, or one of my frustrations, I think, with COVID and everything that's going on is that no one is talking about like the health aspects of it, and people that are healthy and people that are taking care of themselves and people that are managing their diet and their weight and taking their vitamins and making sure that they're getting that balance. They're obviously handling COVID a lot better than people that are unhealthy. And that's kind of my frustration about medical industry in general, is that more emphasis needs to be placed on just overall health rather than just treating a specific sickness. But
the problem with that is there's no money in that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, not comparatively, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the money. And that's what people are talking about with the vaccines. They want more and more people to take the vaccine. And it's because the vaccine costs money, and it's just, that's what everyone cares about. It's business. That's why we're here. That's why we talk on this podcast, is because we're in the solar business and we sell solar because we like money. So, I mean, typically we like very few people I know in solar. I don't think I've ever met anyone that sells solar and says they don't like money. But tell me about your kind of experience in sales. So like what do you think is been the most important thing to your success? Is it because now you're managing other people and you're helping them. And one of the things that you I've seen on your page is you have a PDF for the 10 secrets that you wish you knew before you got into solar sales, or it might've just been general sales. Can you share us a little insights about what those secrets are and kind of what recommendations you have for other people?
So for me, it's all principles. Tactics change over time. Principles stay the same, right? So when we go out and knock in Vegas, the approach we're using now is different than what it was a year ago, which is different from what it was a year ago. But the principles of successful door knocking remain the same, right? So put in the work right when I show up to the neighborhood. I get out right away, knock the door, hit it as fast as possible so my brain can't overthink it. And then that starts the day out right, pushing every interaction as far as it can go, recording at least one interaction, analyzing at the end of the day. There's all these different principles, right? And if you just commit and you surrender to the principles, then you're always going to win long term, right? Tweaking the sales process is pretty easy, especially, I've studied sales like crazy for like 6 years. So, some could argue, well, that's not true or whatever. But like someone that's just working, and they're coachable. I can tweak what they're saying. I can tweak their close. That's the easy part. But to have someone that has principles and the work ethic, That's what's really required. If someone's a hard worker and they commit to the principles and they just say, hey, I'm doing this no matter what. We always do a thank you letter and gift after every sale. And, every meeting I'd show screenshots of all this homeowners texting me like, thank you so much. I just sold somebody, she needed a roof and they had a tortoise named Mikey. And they talked about how the tortoise loves strawberries. So I sent them some strawberries after, and they're like, that was so nice. Mikey's face is all red from the strawberries, right? So in the meetings, I'd just say over and over, hey, are you guys doing your thank you letters and gifts? If you're not doing them, why not? It's like if you just stick to the principles of success and you just do them no matter what, the tactics can change. But if you surrender to the principles, then you're going to win. And I can get more into specific principles if you want, but that's kind of the gist.
Yeah, no, that's kind of, I think, the mindset that anyone has. It's all about the growth mindset, which is focusing on building the skills and the principles and developing that discipline that's going to lead to your success. And I've actually last week or so, I've been posting a little bit more about discipline and trying to get reps to get their asses in gear and stuff, because with my new position at Cadessa, I'm working more hand in hand with direct reps. And there's just a lot out there that I think people take for granted how great this industry is.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing is, because I've worked in other industries where sales guys are working 10 times harder and they're not making nearly as much money. And in solar, it's because they're complacent, or it's easy for them to get by, and therefore they can make excuses or whatever. They're not learning and improving themselves. I like that you mentioned principles and like how if someone's willing to learn and be coachable, then you're able to work with them. Because what it made me think of is I've been obsessed with golf. I just started golfing. Do you golf?
Yeah.
Okay. I golf, I've literally been golfing like 4 times and I'm terrible. But I remember I was just going and I was just playing and I was having the time. I was like, I'll figure it out as I go. And I didn't really learn anything about the principles and the fundamentals of a golf swing, which is important, because I just thought, I play hockey. It's just like swinging a stick. Yep. But once I started focusing on those fundamentals, not only did I enjoy the process more, like mastering those things, but you just notice that everything becomes easier. And so it's the same thing with everything in life, is if we can kind of focus on the principles and make sure that we're putting in the work to improve, not necessarily to improve the results, but to improve our process, then the results are going to follow. Go ahead.
And just to add to that, results don't come overnight, they come over time. And one of the best ways too, I think in solar, because there's so much money, like it's almost a double-edged sword, right? It's like, hey, it's a great opportunity, but people make so much money sometimes on 1 or 2 sales. They sell 1 or 2 a month and they say, awesome. But a lot of times if people are focused on the external, then you get the external, the motivation goes away. So what I really try and work on with my people as well is the internal and who you actually are. So if you see yourself as a hard worker, then that's just who you become. And like, hey, I'm a hard worker, so I'm going to do this. Like, hey, I follow through, so I'm going to do this. And the more internal reasons and motivations and identities you can form to help produce that is kind of necessary in our industry, because you make $100,000 a year barely selling anything.
Yeah, it really is. And what I also think you see it with reps that they focus, they work hard for a couple of weeks, they close 3, 4, 5 deals, and then because they're deals, they're like literally just sitting there waiting for those deals to install. And that is, it's great. Like but they're not necessarily doing it as like a paid or like a planned vacation. They're more just, they don't have that urge or the need. They feel like they're okay right now. And then they're kind of like in this roller coaster of just great boom and bust months. And rather than kind of figuring out the principles that you're just going to be able to do on a consistent basis, it's going to overall make it easier for you. But the biggest thing is more consistency, which I think a lot of salespeople want to be more consistent, but they don't necessarily know how. I'm interested to hear about, I saw on your Facebook, I think you posted a few weeks back about how important it is to like maintain and manage your energy. And obviously you probably have more challenges managing your energy than most people do, but I want to hear, can you give me a little bit of a background of like how how do you manage your energy, and do you have any tips or recommendations, or like how do you coach your team on how to do that?
Yeah, I actually just went over that yesterday, and I kind of feel like I have some credibility here because I've felt pretty bad the last 4 years and still sell deals. I mean, obviously for the normal person, like some of our sales reps, it's literally, so we do like a little accountability challenges, 21 days where you're accountable to a habit. And sometimes the biggest thing somebody needs to do is go to bed before midnight. They're going to bed at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. every day. It's like, dude, you have no chance, right? You're going to feel like crap. So other than the basics, it's like get enough sleep, meditate, eat healthy, exercise, read good stuff. Don't just fill your brain with garbage on Instagram. There's little tactics to change your state when you need to change your state. So for example, most people you've heard of the anchor, where you like anchor in something to a feeling of confidence so you can use it later. But I like to have like a massive stack, because like Jordan Belfort, he talks about using smell and stuff like that and gesture. But like before I show up to a house, if I don't feel good on the drive over, I'll let myself feel like crap the whole drive. But once I'm about 8 to 10 minutes away, that's when I like turn on certain music that's already associated with like good feelings and stuff, because I listen to it after closing sales. I start kind of deep breathing, getting in the moment. You ever meditated? You meditate frequently?
Actually, I was going to ask you about that. Not frequently. I have in the past. I've never established that habit, which is obviously important. But I haven't done it as much as I should.
Yeah. So it's like I start deep breathing, getting in the present moment, like, okay, here we go. And if I'm not feeling good, it's like, hey, all I got to do is perform for an hour and a half. That's all I have to do. Just survive for an hour and a half. So I do a deep breathing. Once I'm right about to the house, I have essential oil, jasmine essential oil. I smell it. I say my phrase, which is, I'm the best, but I, usually yell it like really loud. Which you don't want to have your windows rolled down when you do that. Because last week I was rolling up in a neighborhood and I was yelling, I'm the best. And I was smelling this thing and my windows were down and the neighbor's just staring at me like, what the hell's going on? But anyways, I smell that. I say I'm the best. And then I use like a hand gesture because the hand gesture is anchored in as well. And if actually a lot of public speakers, world leaders and comedians and people who speak on stage, they actually have little hand gestures they use to have themselves to remember things or for confidence. And like when they speak, they'll actually use hand gestures while they're speaking to produce emotions in themselves. But anyways, then I do that, boom, hand gesture, say my phrase, smell the essential oil. I got the music on, I park. Then as I'm walking up to the house, when I ring the doorbell, I say to myself, these are the most interesting people. I care about these people. They have the answers. And that's just my affirmation I say to myself. And so when they answer the door, now I'm in a confident, positive state, and I'm in a servant attitude, which if you're confident and you have what's best for them, and they can tell that you've really listened to them and you're solving their problem, then they're going to go solar with you, right? And so putting myself in that mindset, it's like the homeowner answers the door, I'm present, I'm looking at them, I'm asking them the questions, they have the answers. They're not going to go solar for my reasons. They're going to go solar for their reasons, right? And so all I have to do is really listen to them, do a full assessment, and they're going to tell me everything I need to know. And then I just give them what they want, present it the way they need to hear it. Like this one lady, she was saying, she was a one-legger, so I rescheduled it to come back. But instead of just leaving, I was like asking her all these questions. Like, she's like, yeah, my husband, he's looked into it many times before. He's super skeptical. He thinks solar panels are not environmentally friendly. He doesn't want any panels from China. And she just told me everything. So when I came back, when I presented it, I used a North American made panel. I had all the stats already ready to go for environmental stuff. And I like weaved it in throughout my presentation and basically answered every single thing that this guy already had. So it was never an objection. And at the end, he just said, cool, sounds good. Right. So I would much rather.
Best.
Yeah. But it was crazy because these people literally had talked to like 3 or 4 solar people before and said no each time. And she said it was because the husband was so skeptical. But then when I asked her why, she gave me all the reasons, So it's like the more you can listen and the better you can just gauge what they need and what they're saying. Then all you have to do is solve their problem. Obviously there's, at the end they say I need to think about it and I have my own ways to get around that. But in general, if I'm in that confident state and I'm listening to them and I'm here to serve and like they trust me, they know I'm the best, the chances of them going solar is pretty high.
Yeah. And the chances of them canceling after they sign with you are also pretty low, which is important because I think that's one of the things. I've seen it with a lot of reps that come to solar from a different industry, maybe an industry that doesn't have, like if they're out there and they're selling alarms and then their goal, they're in a way, they're kind of doing the thing where what they're really selling is a site survey rather than selling the solar panel system. But the main thing is they don't build that trust and that relationship. And if they don't care about you, then they're at one point during that 3-month time, they're probably going to think, maybe I should just cancel it. And that's definitely just something that I think every sales rep can do a better job of and try to be better. Cause I think we need to be better humans and friends. And obviously you're talking about gifts too. What's your favorite gift to give somebody? Is it always personal or do you have one that you think really works for solar customers because it's cool and it has an impact?
Always personalized. I'm literally listening to them the whole time. And like, if they have like a cat or a dog or something that they really love or whatever, like even before I leave, I'll be like, hey, what's your dog's name? Like, how do you spell your dog's name again? And I'll write it down right then and there. So if I like send something for their dog, like a toy or something, I'm spelling the dog's name correctly and everything. Right. So it's not like the dog has a weird name. I'm not even spelling it wrong. So when they get it's like all those little details and you always just have your antenna up. I just have my antenna up. I'm just listening to whatever they say that's important to them. And then, afterwards or even during the appointment, I'm writing it down like, hey, this would be really good gift, right? So it's always personalized. Like the best story is in Texas. I was working with this lady and she was from Mexico. And she's from Mexico and she just moved to Texas. And I'm like, hey, do you like it better here, And I could tell she was like, I'm like, you can tell me the truth. I said, no, not really. And I said, why? She said, well, in Mexico, me and my kids, every day we would drink tea together and we spent all this time, but now it's so busy. They're just on their devices. We never spend any time together anymore. So I sent her a tea set, right? Like a tea set with all these cups and stuff. And she called me, with the letter and everything. She called me three days later crying, saying, Taylor, thank you so much. Ever since I got that tea set, I've been drinking tea with my son every morning. Right. And so I was just like, it's pretty cool. So it's just personal. Like I don't just send some generalized thank you thing. Right. So I'm always listening to what's important to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for anyone who heard, my wife came in and so that, yes, I'm a dad sometimes. And that's one of the wonderful things about working at home. One of the book that I've actually mentioned on this, when I'm interviewing people several times for everybody, check it out, is called Giftology. And it talks a lot about that and like the criteria for a great gift. Because there's a lot of people that do gifts wrong, especially, I think especially sales reps, meaning they hear about giving gifts and they give a gift, but they're doing it because they want to get a referral or they're doing it because they want to get something from the customer and they're thinking about themselves rather than thinking about the customer. And what you just mentioned about personalizing it is awesome. And then the other thing too, that I think more people in our industry need to do is focus on providing, not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be gifts, but just continuing to follow up, keeping them on your mail list, sending them Merry Christmas cards or small gifts for their dog at Christmas time, like little things like that keeps you as their solar guy. You're going to maintain that friendship. And if it's someone who brings you one deal every 2 years, that's going to still pay for itself 100 times out of 100. So you have to do that. And then once again, we're doing it not because we're expecting to get those things, but because we care about them and we want them just to think of us if it ever does come up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that we see in maybe some other industries that solar isn't as focused on, because solar guys just seem to be like, deal, next customer, next customer. And just something that we can all think about as the industry kind of moves forward. Real quick. Go ahead.
Just on top of that, that's why like everyone's like, when you go and sell a deal, let's say the average system size 8 kilowatts, you don't ever want to walk into a deal and just view it as 8 kilowatts. You're walking into a deal and it's worth 30 or 40 kilowatts. And all you have to do is sell them correctly, treat them really good. And then they're going to know I was treated this way. So I trust this person with my friends and family. And then that 8 kilowatts is going to become worth 40 kilowatts.
Yeah.
So it's just like a mindset when you say, hey, it's not an 8 kilowatt, it's a 40 kilowatt.
Exactly. And the best part is those referrals are always the best customers. And you don't they're not doing it because you tell them, hey, I have $1,000 referral program. They're doing it because
I don't do 1,000. That's too much.
I know it is. No, I mean, I know people that do more than
500.
I know people that do more than I know people that do more than 1,000. But then you look at it. That's the other thing too. Is I mean, 500. Like I have a guy who signed up with me, and I was like, hey man, I'll see if he was interested. He's like, you guys do cash back and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, we do, but to be honest, it's not that going to be, unless you like are desperate for cash, it's really not going to make that big of a difference. I wouldn't recommend factoring that in, just because what happens is it just gets added to the total cost of the system. But what I did instead was I talked to him. He actually just started playing golf like I am. And I was like, hey, I'm looking at gifts. I'm like, dude, if I can get him a good club or a cool bag, like I was like looking at all these types of gifts, golf related, that I know he'll enjoy. And even if that gift is a $200 golf club, that's going to have a bigger impact than handing somebody $500. I know it doesn't make sense to people, but that's just the way that gifts work. If you give someone $100, like a really nice shirt that costs $150, that's going to mean a lot more to them than if you bought them a $200 iPod. And the reason for that is because you want to always try to provide them with something that is special and something that maybe they wouldn't necessarily buy themselves because it's too expensive, but if they had it, they would love it. And that's definitely, you always want to, I think that was one of the principles in that gift book, is you always kind of want to buy something that's top of the line for them if you're giving them a gift.
And real quick on that referral stuff. One time I was actually competing against somebody, and he's like, how much you give for a referral? And I was like, 500. And he's like, oh, okay. Yeah. The other guy that came the other day, he said he'd give me 1,200 per referral. It seems like too much. He's probably overpricing my system, you know? And I was like, yeah, he probably is. Right.
I wish everybody was as smart as that.
I don't think $1,000 is more motivating than $500. But that's just me.
Yeah, it's the exact same. I mean, I was trying to think of the best example where, I mean, it's all about like the price points, you know, it's like there's different price points that kind of mean and hit a different way. And at each price point, the difference between $250 and $400 isn't as significant as the price difference between, I mean, it's similar to like 100 and 150. And the way that everything lines up is it really is not going to make a huge difference on the actual effectiveness of it. And all you're doing at that point is just taking more money out of your pocket, when you could have the same impact, if not a bigger impact, if you just add a little bit more thought into giving them a gift or doing the cash back or referral fee in a way that is going to help you get even more in the future. So there's 2 more questions I have for you. And I know you got to go in like 10 minutes or so. So I'll try to get some quick. Can you tell me a little bit about your process for running a sales meeting?
A sales meeting. So I've been tweaking them and getting them better over the last 3 years, because I've been running almost every single meeting since then. It's like over 500 meetings. But typically how it goes right at the beginning, cool. Here's some shout outs. Here's a leaderboard. Awesome. Who wants to share a success story? Who wants to share a lesson they learned? And then I'd kind of go into big announcements, Solar 101, like anyone that has burning questions you can ask. And then we'll either do some role play, and then I will do a sales piece and then a motivational piece. And then lately I've actually, to enhance what I've been teaching, I record myself when I close deals and stuff sometimes, just so I have, material and they see it's like real stuff that I'm using. So like, let's say I do something in the house. Hey, they needed a re-roof. Boom. I did this method or whatever. And this is how you do this. I'll show them everything. And then I go, awesome. All right. Everyone role play together. 2 of you guys pair up. Everyone role plays for like 5 minutes. And then I say, who wants to come up in front of the class and do it? And then it kind of like reinforces what I just taught, versus they just hear it and then they forget it. And then at the end, I have some kind of like deeper stuff going on. I just noticed, like, if I did just the motivational, people attention would drop off and they wouldn't get better at sales. If I did just the sales, a lot of people didn't pay attention. But if it was like sales with a mix of role play and then with a mixture of some deep stuff at the end, then it always, impacts people. And the deeper stuff is more just, I just kind of talk honestly about success or this or your why or whatever. And before I run a meeting, sometimes I'll text my people as well, because they know better than I do. I have like 5 people I send a text to. I say, hey, what does the team need to hear the most right now? And I will also kind of have an idea too. So I literally just kind of feel, I'm like, what do people need to hear the most right now? Like, what are people struggling with the most? Like, if it's dealing with competition, how to beat someone else's, quote or whatever. And so every meeting I run, I try and make it as relevant and as impactful to where most people are currently at and what they currently need to hear. So sometimes people will literally be like, it's like you're reading my mind or whatever. And it's like, not really. I'm just paying attention, and I'm asking people in the office what's going on. And then that's how I run the meetings.
Well, I mean, you're prepared, and you have the principles. Look at this. We're tying it all together. You're prepared, and you have the principles to provide them with kind of a balance of everything they need, but also taking the time before a meeting to plan and research and figure out what's going to work best for them right now. Because I think that's one thing that people don't do, is maybe they just have a cycle of like, number one, they always want to focus more on like overcoming objections and closing and like all that kind of stuff, which is great. But that's also how we encounter those issues that we get with solar reps that really aren't connecting with customers, and they aren't closing people that, like, the people they're closing never give them a referral. They don't even remember their names. They never follow up with them, and kind of building that as far as the habits and the mindset and the whole package is how I think you really get balanced and successful reps that are not only successful, but they will be successful no matter where they go, no matter what they do. Last question I have for you is you have done improv. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, you have done improv. What do you think has been the biggest benefit to your sales career that you've gotten from improv?
Improv just teaches you. So they have a methodology. It's called yes and. So whatever the other person does, it's like yes and, right? Like to say you're just kind of doing some random thing. They're like, whoa, the wall is falling in. It's like, yes. And also the windows are shattering. And so it just like helps build up this, momentum. And it just gets you to think on your feet. So for a lot of people, I've actually recommended improv just because there's some people that are a little stiff. You have sales reps that like, they're kind of just all the logic. And it's like, we're in the solar business, but really we're in the people business, right? And they know all the right moves. They know what to say, but they can't really vibe with the homeowner. And what really creates that connection is like, hey, you're the expert. You know what you're doing. You're leading it forward, but you also are vibing with the homeowner and you're creating that connection, right? And so improv, I think, would help a lot of people to just get out of their own head and more into the moment and be able to have those spontaneous, chemistry and what's the word I'm looking for? Spontaneous moments with the homeowner. Like sometimes like I'm in the house and, we start getting wild or whatever. I see something going on. We start joking around, having some fun. Right. So you don't want to just be like, not every customer you want to get wild with. You always got to read the situation, but you don't want to just be the stiff person that just only knows the word tracks and the scripts. You want to be able to combine that with vibing and joking around or having a good conversation with the homeowner.
Yeah, I think you see that with the like sales reps that are kind of middle of the road. Like they're not new, but they're not like the pros. They're not the people that have been in this industry for 5 years and no matter what, they can handle it. I think a lot of times what they do is they find something that works and they either stick to their avatar or the type of person they work best with, or they have their script. And then when a customer goes off the script, they stumble and fumble their words and they mess up. And so being able to think on your feet is going to help you to overcome that. Like, who's the quote? I think is it Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali or one of the great boxers? You always have a plan until someone punches you in the face.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson. So everyone has that plan about how the pitch is going to go and what their approach is going to be and their angle. And then as soon as it goes off script, they fumble the ball. And so you have to be, and there's always going to be, you can never prepare for everything. I mean, you can try and you can get really, really good, but there's always going to be something that kind of blindsides you. And as long as you have the ability to think on your feet and maintain your composure when that happens, you're going to be able to be successful. And I think improv is an awesome idea for that. That's actually something I wanted to recently, I wanted to get into since COVID started, but I haven't done it yet. Jiu-jitsu was another one. I wanted to start getting into jiu-jitsu a little bit, but it's awesome, man. I appreciate your time, dude. You're obviously a super inspirational guy. It was great talking to you. I had a lot of fun, and you are, what I love about you is you, from the posts and the stuff that you do in the Facebook groups, it's real. Like the stuff you post, you're not posting it with ulterior motives. Obviously, we all post things for like a personal branding standpoint, but for the most part, you post it as if you're like, it's almost like every time I read your post, I feel like I'm reading a summary of like a chapter in your book, and you have like these different topics that you're touching on because for whatever reason, it's important to you. And I appreciate that. And I think there's a ton of value in there's a ton of value just being your friend on Facebook, because I see a lot of good stuff. So anyone who is interested in getting the 10 secrets that you wish you knew for sales pros, I'll put a link down in this video or podcast, wherever it is. I'll include a link to that. If there's anyone who's listening to this and wanted to reach out to you to possibly maybe work with you or learn from you, what would be the best way that they could do that?
Message me on Facebook. And if I don't see it, message me again, just because Facebook Messenger, they took away see unread messages, and then it just gets buried. So if I don't respond, it just means I didn't see it.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people too, is like, if I don't reply, just keep annoying. It's sales, right? Good sales guys have no problem sending me messages every single day. Yep. But don't just send one message and forget, because if you follow up, who knows where that next opportunity might take you. Awesome, TJ. Hey, thank you so much for your time, man. We'll definitely have to do it again sometime. And I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
You too.
All right, man. Take care.
See ya.